All right, guys, let's get back into PC Building Simulator. Let me hide this. There we go. All right, we left off with getting the CPU from inventory. We installed the motherboard. We ran some power cables. I like this. Check this out, though. But this is cool, right? You see how all the cables are running behind here, are grouped together nicely and plugged into the essential spots that it needed to be as we were connecting that before. So I think that's really cool. Let me just set up my timer because I want to try and keep these videos less than 15 minutes tops. All right. Get the CPU for inventory. Go get the CPU. There's a little guy over here. Um, Pins. CPUs is pins that plug into the sockets on the motherboard. Remember, there's two types. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't remember the acronyms right now, but one is where the pins are on the motherboard and ones are on the pins are on the CPU. Looks like this one here, they are simulating has the pins plug into the socket on the motherboard, blah, blah, blah. So it looks like the pins are on the motherboard and not on this CPU. So that's AMD uses one, Intel uses the other. I remember that, but I forgot which one is which. So we'll have to look into that when we get back to school. Processor is the chip that does all the calculations. The faster the processor operates, the more calculations it can do, the more powerful the processor is, the faster and generally better your computer runs. It's a major factor in it, at least anyway. RAM, hard drive speed, that kind of stuff all weigh in as well. But the bigger the CPU, the better, essentially. A heat plate. Most CPUs will have some type of heat plate on here. It'll be like this thin silver layer on top of the CPU. Don't get that confused with the heat sink, which is the much bigger thing that you'll install on top of that. So let's get this CPU in. Let's zoom in a little bit. First thing we got to do is we got to open the shield with the little lever there. We saw that on the computers that we had in the classroom there, right? Put the CPU in, put the latch back on, and when you do that, it'll kind of compress it in there and kind of firmly latch it in there. Apply thermal paste. So we're going to put a heat sink on top of this, right? Remember, the thermal paste is that sticky substance we saw when some of you took off the heat sink when you shouldn't have when we were doing this in class. So let's take a look here. So continue. Uh, there's a little dollop. When you do this in real life, that's all you actually need. There's no need to like do a whole smiley face or lather up the whole area. One little dot, when you press the heat sink down, that will spread out, kind of like making a pancake. Okay. So hit continue. We got to go get the CPU cooler. So it's basically this, which is a big fan. You'll have the plate that this will screw in on top of the CPU. The heatsink fins. This design is circular. The ones that we saw at school were much more square or rectangular in nature. Those fins are just like thin pieces of metal that conduct and allow the heat to spread out and get out of the CPU's way. The hotter that CPU runs, the less it is going to run well. Okay. So bear that in mind that that's how it's designed for a reason. Of course, then you have the fan that are helping push the air out and away from the CPU. You want to keep that CPU as clean as possible. Let's install this bad boy. Okay. Oh boy. So what do I do? Boom. Okay. Uh, let's connect it to the motherboard. So now it's getting power to power that fan. Let's install the graphics card. Graphics card has an important component called the GPU. Basically, it's the CPU of the video card. And the graphics card is important, especially if you're into gaming, because the more you can offload the work of generating the graphics in a video game off of the CPU and onto the video card, the better, because then that gives your CPU more available power to concentrate on doing whatever else it needs to do for the applications that you're running. It has its own little fan and heat sink, its own little graphics processor. This one here has dual GPUs, meaning it has two chips. The PCIe connector, I don't know if I can make that. So this here is how it plugs into the motherboard. It only fits one way. So if you're trying to fit something in and notice it's not really working all that well, that's a problem. See the back here? There's your DVI slot. That's for USBs, and that's for VGA, even though that's covered. This faces the back of the PC. So that way it's sticking out of the back once you install it, so that you can plug your cables to your monitor in. So this only fits one way. It's really not difficult to deal with. What the game wants us to do, though, is unscrew that little plate. So notice now there's a hole in the back of it. See how you got like the grating here? Well, we took that one panel out, and now we are going to install the graphics card and then rescrew that in. So now I'll just hit continue on this for a second. We're going to go get the RAM. So now you see this stuff sticking out the back. And it's usually airtight sealed pretty much where it fits perfectly so that there's no way for dust to get in there. The graphics on this game don't really show that well, but that is generally true when you install this stuff. Memory, we're going to go get some RAM. Let's go back to our toolbox here. RAM. Once again, the connector, RAM only fits one way. So if you're trying to shove it in and it's not working, try flipping it around. Many people struggle with that. I do too. When I'm like, oh, it looks like it goes this way, and it really doesn't. There's one notch in the middle, and usually that notch is not in the center. It's offset. So one side looks like this side looks smaller than that side. So look at where you're plugging it in, and it'll fit in. See these locks here where it says is where the slots lock? You put that in, and I'm making hand gestures like you can see me. Sorry. There's latches that go on either side over here so that as you push this in, the latches close around it and seal it into that connector. Okay. Inside here, where you can't see, is just a black strip where it says PC Building Simulator and there's a little label there, are the actual memory chips where there's just little baby CPUs that make up the amount of components that drive how much memory is on that stick. So we're going to install that. Looks like we're installing two. Here's those latches I was talking about. So we have to open those. And really the graphic on this game here is just showing them opening them. Install that. And install that. And if you could see that while I was doing it, the latches automatically close around it. Hard drive. Let's go to our handy dandy toolbox. We're almost done here. The hard drive has the spinning disc, looks like a DJ platter with those discs. And this is like a physical hard drive, not a solid state. Solid state hard drives have no moving parts, whereas this has platters that spin around at a certain RPM, and you'll see that the 5400 RPM, 7200 RPM. I don't think you can read this label. Doesn't really say. Yeah, it doesn't say on here. It's a fake manufacturer name and stuff anyway. The more RPM, the faster those platters spin, the faster that hard drive can read and write and save data to it, basically, okay? And then you have this side here where that's where the power plug is, and that's where the SATA cable goes. So let's install this bad boy. So it goes in this slot here. We're going to open the drive bay, which I'm going to zoom out and move this around. Most times on a computer, you'll have a bay where this will slide in, where that will just kind of pull out, put the hard drive in, and then slide it right back. And then on the other side here, you'll see now, yeah, it won't let me rotate it all the way around. That sucks. Okay. If I go this way. Aha. So here is where the SATA cable goes, and that's where the power cable goes. So if I click this, and it plugs into one of these, I'm going to choose this one. That cable is now running to the power supply. Then you have the SATA cable. I want to do that, and that connects to, should be somewhere on the power supply unit down here as well. There you go. Additional cooling. It wants us to install a fan. We're going to install the fan. It just has the fins and a little motor and plugs into the power. There's really nothing to that, but it's going to go on the back of the PC. And what that does, the fan doesn't blow in. Fan's not blowing into the PC. The fan's blowing out, and it's getting rid of hot air out of the PC out the back. Okay, we're going to screw that in. Hold on, I want to move this around so you can see it. Okay. There you go. And now we just got to connect the power supply to the fan. We'll do that. It goes right to the motherboard, and I guess the daisy chains the power. Let's close the case. So on the opposite side here, take one last look. Before we put the case on, you see all the power cables and all run along the back on one side. leaving the other side free and open to let airflow and let you work on it when you want to upgrade components. Put the case back on. Continue. Now what do we got to do? It wants us to, we got to plug everything in. Oh, that's neat. It makes us plug everything in. Plug the power cable in. Let's plug in the mouse into one of the USBs. And let's plug the, what is that for? HDMI to the video card. And I guess now, we got one more. We got to plug the keyboard too. There you go. And now we get to put the power on. Power buttons up here. I actually I know this is not a real case. I actually like this case. I like the layout. I don't know if I'd go with red. I'd probably go with green and blue, but I do like the layout. Power on the computer. And the computer works. Mission accomplished. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to take a little bit of a break here, upload this video, save it, do all that. And then we're going to go into the game and see what the first game wants us to do. So take care, and I'll see you guys in a little bit.